Hi, it's me, Chris Kelly. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the city of Rochester Hills, Michigan. I am in my in-home studio right now, the rubber room we lovingly call it, and I am going to share with you one of the classes that we did during our winter retreat. We actually ended up doing 3 classes. I partnered with my sister-in-law, who I'm excited to say is going to be here today, and we are going to be heading to Long Beach, California for On Stage on Wednesday. So I'm starting to pack and get my things ready to go, but I'm going to pre-tape a couple of videos for you, and this is one of them. We're going to be using products from this suite. This is the Lovely and Beautiful suite, and it's like a super suite. It has 2 stamp sets with it, but it coordinates with all of these beautiful spring colors: the Petal Pink, Calypso Coral, Peach Pie, Darling Duckling, Old Olive, and Fresh Freesia. Those just scream spring flowers, which I love. So and here's what's in it. You have 2 stamp sets. The Simply Beautiful stamp set. There we go. The Simply Beautiful stamp set and the Beautifully Celebrated stamp set. And you also have this beautiful gold vellum ephemera pack, some jewels, and some ribbons. And then you have this coordinating designer series paper, which I'm going to get up there so you can see. It is just gorgeous. You have some geometrical prints as well as some beautiful flower prints. And these are some beautiful scrapbook pages. Here's some really pretty cards for the wedding. These are in pages 25, 26, 24, 27 of your January to April mini catalog. Just gorgeous. I love coloring, so this kind of a outlined flower is like perfect for me. So we're gonna hop right in here. We're gonna be using the Simply Beautiful stamp set and coordinating dies for this. And okay, everything comes packed in envelopes, and then we put the envelopes into cello bags for you. So this is what your envelope would look like. Here's a little peek at the card we're going to be making. And let's get out all of our goodies here. I'm going to be using some masking paper for this flower. You can color this flower with watercolors, you can color it with pencils, you can color it with chalks, you can color it with blends, markers, whatever you want to color it with. But I'm going to do a little coloring and masking so that you can see how it will look if you colored it with some blending brushes. Okay, so I'm going to pop in here. I've taken my masking paper and stamped my leaf image on it. So your masking paper comes apart and this side is sticky. Okay, so what you want to do is you're going to stamp your image on it, and then you're going to trim around your image, and you're going to stamp on the part that you're not peeling off. So you're going to stamp on that kind of matte part. And I'm just going to cut right on the stamped line. Okay, and we do have dies, but you don't want to use your die for this part. For this part, you just want to cut right on your stamped image line. Okay, I love to fussy cut. This is going to give us, I love a blending also, so this one is kind of like right up my alley. Some of the gals at the retreat did color with their blending brushes, but some of them did give this a try. I always like to offer lots of different options because we all like to stamp our own way and be creative in our own way. Some gals love their punches, some gals love their die cuts. I prefer to fussy cut over a die cut, but that doesn't mean I don't die cut because I do a lot of that also. Okay, so we're gonna bring in this is just a piece of regular basic white cardstock. I'm gonna bring in my stamp and I'm gonna stamp it with some Memento ink. Okay. And then I am going to peel the back off my sticky paper. I'm going to take the outline. I'm not going to use the image. This is my image part. And you can use it for a different technique than this, but this is the one I'm sharing with you. So we're going to use kind of the negative portion, if you will. This is like really, really sticky. So I'm just going to wipe it on my pants. You can use your pants, your shirt, whatever. You could even use your little embossing buddy if you wanted to. I'm just going to use my pants because I don't want it to be so sticky that it peels up my image. So now I'm just going to place it right in there on my image so you can see that black line is showing there. Okay, let's get this down here. And what we want to do with this is to color our leaves and leave a white bordered edge. I think that white border edge on it really makes it pop. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to add color just to our leaf and then have it pop with when we die cut it. So this is the masking paper is going to mask up all of that white paper for us. So I'm just going to come in with my Mossy Meadow ink and I'm going to use my blending brush. I like to put my fingertip, my index finger right on the edge and just take my color from the edges of my ink pad. That allows me to not get that empty ink spot in the middle of my ink pad. So I'm just going to add some color there and then I'm going to come off. I always start off my image paper so that I get lots of that dark ink off and can start with my lighter ink towards the middle of my image. So I'm just going to lightly add some ink. I'm going to actually take more ink off so it gets lighter around my edges. And I just use a circular motion for that and very light. Now I'm just going to kind of add a little more right towards the middle so I get kind of a deeper look in there. So quick and easy way to add some colors. And you do want to always be sure to clean up this edge of your ink pad when you're done, because when you use your blending brush like that right on the edges, you do get some ink there and you don't want to set your card in it or anything else. So you just take some Stampin' Mist on a cloth and wipe it right off. Okay, and then we're just going to take our masking paper and lift it off that image. And you can keep your masking paper and use it multiple times if you want to. I don't use mine that way, but I will keep this part of my mask that I haven't used that. I will stick that right in my stamp set, so I will have that to use. And then I'm just going to come in, and again, we have dies for this. So if you want to take your die cut, you certainly can do that. I like to fussy cut, and it's a lot easier for me to fussy cut when I'm on a video than it is for me to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and try and have enough space for it. I'm a messy crafter, so I have very little space to craft in once I get my 3 baskets up here and all of my essentials and my lights and all of that fun stuff. So I'm just going to quickly cut it out for you. And I have already done the flower. I used the same technique for my flower. So this is what my flower looks like. I'll cut out. So that's going to be my flower for the front of my card. I also used some of this handmade paper, which is a part of our Nature's Path suite, and it is so gorgeous. It has a really unique texture to it. Very, very pretty. And then some of this designer series paper, and the back of this designer series paper has those gold flowers on it, which is absolutely beautiful. So my card is cut a little bit differently than it normally would be. So it's going to be 5.5 by 7.5. So I've cut 1 inch off this one side and scored it on the 7.5 inch side right at 4.25. Okay, so our card's going to go like this. And I'm just going to take my designer series paper, put a little bit of Stampin' Seal on here. And if you're using Stampin' Seal, remember you always want to go straight up with it. That is your Stampin' Seal trick. I'll bring this in here. And it's going to go right at the bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to take my rhinestone jewels. Everybody that came to the retreat, you received product, and some of your product were these rhinestone basic jewels, they're called, and some twine. You also got some DSP and some half a pack of gems for the other class that we did. So twine is one of those things that you can customize, and we did customize ours for this card by using our light Secret Sea blends. And I'm just going to color my twine. And I'm just gonna, I always manage like to do this first. So my scrap paper always has these big black lines on it. I'm just gonna color enough that I can put it behind my words. Okay. I think that should be enough, but I'm just going to add a little bit more in here. Anything that's a white or neutral color can always be customized to your project needs using your blends. Markers, if you wanted to. Markers take longer to dry, so I kind of use my blends. We'll set that over there to dry. And then I'm also going to take my blends and color a few of these rhinestone basic jewels. This is one of my favorite accessories. Number one, I don't normally worry if it's going to be out of stock. I love that I can customize it, and I always love some bling. Okay, and then I'm coming in with that delicious handmade paper, and I'm going to flick it. You can flick it like this and add little splotches of color. And that's just, I'm just tapping my blend on my cap. Okay, and if you wanted more color than that, you can take the tip of your blends, put it right inside your cap, hold it down against your cap and flick it out. And that's going to give you this really thick look to it. But for my card, I just want this kind of light, fancy look because it's kind of a fancy card, I think. So the other thing we're going to do is we are going to stamp our sentiment on this piece of basic white cardstock. Here she is, and I'm just going to use some Memento black ink, and put my, I'm not really going to worry about if they're in the center, if they're not in the center, if they're straight, if they're not straight, because I'm going to fancy cut around them. Okay, yeah, and where did my trusty little scissors go? Here they are. So you can leave this in a banner kind of shape if you wanted to. I'm just going to kind of fussy cut it because I really want the focus to be on one, that gorgeous flower that's in the stamp set. And two, I want that fancy handmade paper texture kind of look and feel. So I don't really want my words to be my focal point so much. So I'm just going to cut right around those words. And then I'm going to add that twine that we colored to the back of this. And I am going to pop this up on some dimensionals. Okay, there we go. So let's bring our card base back in here. I'm going to add my fancy paper there with my Stampin' Seal. And I'm just going to put this right on the top of my card. Sometimes I have to tilt it up just so I can be sure I'm getting it on there nice and straight. Okay. And I am going to tape my my leaves right onto my flower in here. And you can see I used some scrap paper that I had already messed up on for that. I always save my scrap paper. I think that's how I want it. I'm going to put this up with some dimensionals. And I have just that edge of my dimensionals. So I'm just going to kind of cut those up. And we'll add those on. My leaves are here, and in there. And I think that will work for us. Bring my card back in here. I'm going to let my leaves hang over this cut edge just to give it kind of a more realistic look so it's not so uniform and crunched up and lining up here and lining up there. I'm just going to have it kind of overlap those lines there. Okay, I'm going to bring my words in. I'm going to cut that twine that I colored. And you can see this twine is like really, really stiff once you color it. So I am going to go ahead and soften it up a bit. And I just soften it by laying it on top of my scissors, putting my thumb on top of the thread, and just kind of gently pulling it through. This one I'm just going to tie in a bow. You can do a figure 8 here if you want. I oftentimes will do one figure 8 and the next one a bow, and so there's no like real rhyme or reason in my head why I do it that way, but it just happens. Some of you that know me well know I'm a just happens kind of whatever girl. So I'm going to put this on there, and I think I want this part just a little smaller. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is, and you can put a little piece of sticky strip back there if you want, but I'm going to use a little piece of a little glue dot just because it is so skinny back there. So I'm just going to put a little glue dot back there. And I'm going to put my bow right into that glue dot. Okay, so it's just right on top of that little glue dot. And then I'm going to put some dimensionals all the way around it. And for this one, I'm going to use some mini dimensionals because they're going to be smaller and will fit this piece of sentiment a little bit better. And I do have a little row here that's already been snipped in half. So I'm going to go in and use those. And I don't waste any of my dimensionals. As you saw on the flower, I used the outside edge. I cut them in half. They're gonna go where they're gonna go and do their job. Okay, so let's get these backs off. You can take your pick tool for this. You can use your scissors for this, your snips at the point of them. I just use my fingers. Go, and I'm going to put that, like, I think I want it over just a little bit, so it's going to be touching the edge of my card. I do like that. Okay, then I'm just going to snip this and a little bit off here. Oh, I like how it's coming together. And then I'm going to bring in my little diamonds, my basic rhinestone jewels. And I'm going to put my big one. It looks like my putty got really big in there. So I'm going to take my big one and kind of put it right there. And then I'm going to take two smaller ones and put them up on the top by my sentiment. So one's gonna go there and one's gonna go there. Okay, now you could put your little gems in there, but I like that you can see the little specks on there in that handmade paper. I just really like the way that this one turned out. It's just kind of a special fun little, oh, you don't want to do this. I got my dimensional down too far there. I'm gonna have to pop that up. We'll just cut it right off there. There we go. Yeah, you want to be sure not to put adhesive on those leaves so your card can still open and look nice. And I will go in with my adhesive remover and just kind of clean this up a little bit so that my recipient, when they open their card, doesn't see all that mess. There you go. Isn't that pretty? I just really like how that one turned out. Okay, so let's move on. Get that stuff out of the way, and we are going to be using some of that ephemera pack as part of the product that they got with their class. They got a half a pack of that vellum gold ephemera. Isn't this gorgeous? I am just in love with it. There's some little tags, there's leaves, there's gold flowers. I love these little kind of like design pieces. Isn't that just so pretty? I just love it. So we're going to be using some of these pieces for our card. Let's get everything out of our envelope here. Okay, and this is what our card is going to look like. Isn't that pretty? So we are going to actually be using this piece from our ephemera pack. And we're just going to use the inside or the outline of that oval. I'm going to use this flower and I'm going to use a couple of leaves. Okay. So that's all we're going to use from the ephemera pack on this card. So put that back in here. I had some gold foil paper that I cut out. Put that back in there. So I did cut out some of the gold foil paper. And then this piece here is going to go on the inside of our card. So let's just start off with that. This is a piece of gorgeous grape that's been cut at 8.5 by 5.5 and scored on the 8.5 side at 4 1/4. This is just a piece that is 5 inches by 3.5 inches. And I cut it that size so that I can get 2 extra pieces out of a piece of 8.5 by 11. I do put weight in almost all of my cards, so that helps me to just stretch it a little bit more. Okay, so there's the inside of my card. And then I have this piece of 5 1/4 by 4, and this is Highland Heather. And I put it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine using the Exposed Brick 3D embossing folder. Now, when I use an embossing folder, I like to take my Stampin' Seal all the way around, just because I want to be sure I get adhesive in all of those little nooks and crannies. Make sure I got that in there nice and straight. Okay, there we go. And we're going to set that aside. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and add this piece right now. And I'm going to put some dimensionals on this one. I'm going to use the bigger ones just because it is a bigger piece of gold foil there. There we go. And this gold, I think, coordinates so well with the gold ephemera pack. It just looks so elegant. Yeah, and I'm going to put it right in the center there. Okay, now we'll set it aside. I'm going to bring in my vellum flower. Let me get rid of some of this junk on here. I think that Secret Sea ink is distracting enough without having all of this trash on top of it there. So let's just get that out of the way. There we go. Okay, so this is our piece of vellum. And I'm just going to use my dark Highland Heather blending brush. And you color on the back of your vellum. That way it will dry and will give you a really pretty, soft look from your coloring. It does take a minute to dry. So we'll just quickly color it. And you could color your leaves also. I did not, but you obviously can. And while that's going to dry for a minute, I am going to put this on top of my piece of vellum. Your vellum is kind of see-through. So whatever you put on there for an adhesive, you can see it And so a lot of people will put it behind your adhesive, behind something. So my adhesive would go here and it would be covered up with my flower. At one of our meetings, and it might have been at this retreat, one of my downline shared a little secret for this. So I have my little silicone mat, and I'm gonna bring it in. Isn't this little holder cute? One of my downline does a 3D printer, and so she made this for me. It has a little, it looks like a little teapot, but I can hold my top right there, and then this, I think it's so cute. Okay, so what Cece says to do is to put a little petal of your glue, and this is Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. I am not a glue fan, so this is kind of out of my comfort zone, but it works as an adhesive for your vellum. So I'm just going to spread it around with my index finger and then just kind of dab it onto my vellum. And when you use your silicone mat with your adhesive on it, your adhesive just dries on there and you can peel it right off after it dries. So I'm going to get it out of the way, and if I remember before I'm done, I will go ahead and show you how to peel it off. So this is just going to go on this piece of white cardstock. Okay. And then I'm going to cut around this piece of vellum. So I'm just going to bring my scissors in and fancy cut around that vellum ephemera piece. And I added the piece so that I would have some place to stamp my sentiment. You could obviously put this piece up with die cut, or with die cuts, with dimensionals. Sometimes the words trick me up. So you could add some dimensionals to the back of this if you wanted to. Lots of different ways you can dress up. And again, you could go back in and add some color to the back of it if you wanted to. You can heat emboss on it, so you could actually use some gold embossing powder behind there if you wanted to. It would look good just on the gold foil that's on your card too, if you wanted to just leave it like that. I like the way the white cardstock behind there kind of makes it pop or stand out a little bit more. So I'm hoping we see more of these kinds of products in our new catalog. I will be able to get the new catalog in my hands on either Thursday or Friday of this week. I'm hoping it's going to be in our registration bag when we sign in on stage on Thursday, but I will let you know when I get into my hot little hands how amazing it is. That's one of the biggest perks of going to on stage is you get your catalog a couple days early. For us, it will be, I think, 4. As demonstrators, I think you can see your catalog online March 16th. So I think it's only 3 or 4 days that will be ahead of everybody else. So there is my little piece of ephemera, and I am going to take my Highland Heather ink, and I'm going to stamp my words using the thank you words. I'm going to put them up in here because I want my flower to go kind of in here. I think I probably am going to have to stand up to make sure I get it straight in there. Oh, that was awful. I think I'm going to have to work on that a little bit. Let me grab some scrap paper and see what we can work out there. I do have some little die cuts Will that one work in there? Oh yeah, perfect, okay. That will hide my whole mistake in there, so let's get my stamp cleaned up. Look at how I inked that. What was I thinking? Like, let's get so much ink on there that it goes everywhere. It's funny, I did that on on my sample, and so you can see I cut around my words and popped them up on dimensionals. So let's see if I can make that mess go away. There we go, a nice clean one. I guess I am really gonna have to stand up. They say third time is the charm, so let's really see if that's the case. Apparently it is the case. Okay, I have just a little bag of goodies here that I keep at my stamping desk for emergency situations like that. So you can put that right on there, and nobody is going to be any the wiser. And I do think I'm going to go ahead, let me see. I do think I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of ink around the edge and then pop it up with some dimensionals. Let me see. So you can get color around your edges just by using your ink pad. My ink pad is really juicy. That must be what part of the problem is here. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of like feather dust it there with just a really light touch. And yeah, I am not crazy about that. So I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to let it dry off for a minute while we bring our other things in. And we'll start getting our card together, okay? And I'll decide what I'm going to do with that. I'm not really sure yet, but we'll come up with something creative that will work to cover that up. Okay, so here's our little flower over here. And again, I'm going to add just a little bit, one more round of color on it. So it's just a tad darker than it is now. And you can see when you're coloring it, it's just going to kind of blend all over and give you that really soft kind of flowering look to it as it dries. Okay, so we're going to put this on here, and I think I'm just going to cut around this. And I can use some gems down at the bottom if there's still an area that I need to cover up. But I think what I'm doing is just trimming my words here, which is always a good remedy. Kind of to hide some flaws. Here we go, just a quick little trim around there. Trying to leave it long enough that it's going to cover those up. And I think I got them. Okay, so let's put some of these little mini dimensionals on here. And I'm going to use the whole mini dimensionals because this piece isn't as skinny as that other one. I am going to take a little half one and put it down on the thank you, the little T part at the bottom there. Okay. And then I'm also going to bring my jewels in. Little. And I'm going to color them with the dark Highland Heather also. Let me see if I did it with the light one. Nope, I'm going to do it with the dark one. So I'm just going to add a little bit of color to them. Okay. And let's put our words up here. And I am going to have to tilt this up just for a second to be sure I get everything covered that I wanted to. Okay. Then I'm just going to put some Stampin' Seal on back here. And I'm just going to use my Stampin' Seal because I did put dimensionals behind my gold piece here when I layered it on. And then also on my words. So I'm just going to put on my sentiments. I'm just going to put this down flat there. And I'm going to add my flower. And I think I'm just going to add it with my Stampin' Seal. But I am going to add my leaves to the back of my flower with some glue dots. So I'm just going to put some glue dots on the front of my leaves. And then add them down in here to my flower. And then put my flower on there. Okay? I'm gonna add a little dark there. And you know what? I think I'm gonna put that one up there. Oops, that one came right off on my finger. Let's see if I can get it back on there. It has no glue on it. The glue's on my paper now. There. There we go. Let's see, that one came right off. And we'll put it, I still think I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna go down and just kind of tuck it under there just a tad, and then grab this other little guy and put him right there. There we go. Okay. So there's a little one. You can see on this one, I put my gems on my gold foil as opposed to on my cardstock. But that's kind of like the only difference in the two of them. Let's see if I can. There's not enough room there to share them both, is there? Okay, and this was our last one. And this one we did a little bit of watercoloring. Let me get all my pieces out here. Got some gems in there. Okay. So we did a little coloring on vellum. We did some coloring with our blends. And now we're going to do some coloring with our water painter aqua brush. We did one fun fold pattern throughout the entire day. So every class had one card made with this fun fold pattern. And it's actually like kind of a reverse Z fold. So it is 8.5 by 5.5, scored on the 8.5 inch side at 4 1/4. Just gonna fold and burnish that. And then 2 1/8. Okay, so you have kind of that Z fold look. It looks like the letter Z there. Okay, and we've got some die cutting done. We're going to actually be using a couple more of these vellum leaves. So we'll put those aside. We're going to need a little bit of twine. We'll put those aside. I have this for our sentiment. I'm gonna put our gems aside. I actually am gonna, that's gonna go on the inside. It's our die cut. I'm gonna go ahead and stamp our words first. And this says a little note of appreciation. Because my ink pad is so juicy, I'm gonna go ahead and stamp it off. So that's my first generation, and this is gonna be my second generation. It'll be a little bit lighter just because I did stamp off with it, but I am okay with that. So we'll set those things aside. We have these die cut pieces. Those are the pieces that we are going to go ahead and watercolor. We're going to watercolor them by squeezing our ink pad together. And that is going to give us ink. It's going to transfer ink right onto the top of our ink pad. I know the lid of our ink pad, I know we're going to use a little more ink than that. So I'm just going to squeeze it again. Oh, that's a good amount of ink. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my water painter. Let's see where she is. Here she is. Okay, and I'm just going to take my top off and just squeeze some water out. You can see I have some water in my hand. You can actually squeeze it into your lid if you want to. And you're just gonna kind of make a watery mess in there. And we're not gonna care how this comes out. It's gonna be on a flower. So we want it to be different strengths of color. So we're just gonna kind of like crazy brush it on here. I'm gonna actually try and avoid the Secret Sea ink there because I don't want that to blend onto our flower. So I'm just taking my brush and picking up my color from my ink pad. Let me see if I can get that in here a little bit better so you can see. So this is my ink pad, and I just am squeezing a little bit of water in here and then mixing it in with my ink. Okay, and then I'm just dabbing my brush in it and using that to quickly color my flower. And you don't want to be concerned about it being even or anything like that. You want some streaks in it. You want it to be kind of an artsy, have kind of an artsy feel to it. And I'm just gonna take my little trusty cloth here and wipe up the mess in my lid because I don't want that water to get onto my ink pad. So I'm just gonna clean up my lid a little bit and then close it. And I'm gonna do the same with my aqua brush. I'm just gonna squeeze out water onto my cloth and clean it up a bit so that when I go to use it again, I don't have that Highland Heather ink in it. Okay, I'm gonna set those aside to dry. And you can see, didn't they come out so pretty? I really think that it just added so much so much color to them. So we'll set those aside to dry, and we have some designer series paper, and actually when you came to the retreat you got a half a pack of this Cute as a Bug paper, because we were using that Cute as a Bug stamp set, and that's the next class that I'm going to share a video with, so you want to be sure to don't miss that. So I am going to add just a little bit of color around the edges, and that's just going to give it the paper a little more dimension. And if you like that white color on the paper, it's very, very pretty. So you don't have to do this. It is totally up to you as to which kind of a look you like better. So again, I'm just picking up ink around the edges of my ink pad. I'm starting in a circular motion off my designer series paper and then coming onto it. That means that the starkest color is going to get on my paper and not onto my designer series, because I can't go lighter, but I can go darker with it. Okay, so that's just going to add a little bit. In fact, I think I want to add a little more on this end. And I'll do like a little comparison for you, so you can see what I mean. Okay, so here's where we've added some dimension, and then there's where we've added some color, which will give us a little dimension, and then that stark white. And I think both of them look amazing. So you don't have to do this extra step if you don't want to. It's certainly a personal preference and how you want your finished product to look as to whether or not you want to add this color to it. So, and I think when you add the color, it adds just a little bit more dimension. And it will depend too on what you want your focal point to be. And I really love this pink color. So I don't think you can have too much pink, especially not when you're coordinating it with purple, right? I have two granddaughters, and one of them, her favorite color is pink, and the other one, her favorite color is purple. I'm sure they're going to go to blue and yellow during the springtime. They're like their grandma in that their colors, favorite colors change as the seasons change. When they get here in the summer, it's always the fluorescent colors. There we go. Okay, and while I'm thinking of it, you guys, I just happened to look over here where I'm putting all of my things, and it looks like I am going to come in. You can see how my ink pad has all of the ink from that blending brush on it. So I am going to come in and clean it off real quick. I gave myself a new lighting station, a new videotaping station with lots and lots of light. And I kind of promised myself that I was not going to trash it every time I did a video. So I'm trying to kind of clean up as I go. I'm going to bring this in. This is that silicone mat. And you can see where I had my glue on it, right? And all you do is take your finger and it rubs right off. So you don't even have to use soap and water. It just, all of that glue comes right off. So that's kind of a neat little trick for adhering your vellum. Okay, so I think we're ready to assemble now. And I'm going to take our designer series paper, and I'm going to adhere this big piece to the inside of our card. And you can see it gives almost like a little highlight, that blending that draws your eye kind of to the middle of the paper. And then I'm going to take these two pieces. One's going to go here and one's going to go here. And then I do have a die cut piece that we're going to put on there, as well as a piece for the inside. So there's where our 3 pieces of cardstock go. So it's just going to open just like this. Super fun, right? Okay, so then we have this die cut piece here, and those are the texture notes dies that have the rectangles, and I just really love those dies. They will, even if they retire, they will stay in my collection. Okay, so this one I'm gonna do like a double figure 8 behind here. So I'm just gonna do a double bow. I got the double bunny ears going on. There we go. And we're gonna want these to, I just kind of make it so one's just a hair bigger than the other one. And we're gonna do the same on this side. So you just have 2 loops and one's a little bit bigger than the other one. We'll cut this. And we'll cut this. And again, I'm just gonna put a little glue dot back here, and you can use your Stampin' Seal if you want to. I just have my glue dots out, so I'm gonna put a little glue dot on there. And it's gonna go, I guess I want it to go this way. So it'll kind of go back behind there and look like this. And I'm just gonna pull one of those out away from the other one. I have completely missed my glue dot. There we go. Okay, and then I'm gonna come in, again, you guys know this drill, right? And I'm gonna put a dimensional on either side of that knot in my bow. And that should hold it tight. There we go. And I'm gonna put this up towards the top of my die cut. I think I'm gonna cut that just a little bit smaller up there. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna do a little dimensional or a little glue dot on my flowers. And I'm gonna layer those up together. And no right or wrong way to do that. I kind of like that look. And then I have my stamen cut out here. And I'm going to put a little glue dot behind those bigger pieces in the middle. And you can always put this on some adhesive paper if you want to. I did not, and maybe the next time I do it, I will, because the little stamen are kind of little flyaway. There we go. Alrighty. And I'm going to put this, I have a piece of Highland Heather that's been die cut, coordinating die cut, and I'm just going to use my scissors to kind of fold it up a little bit, just kind of breaking down the fibers in your paper so it'll have kind of a fun curl to it. Not your paper, but your cardstock. There we go. And I'm going to put dimensionals right in the middle of my flower back here. Just a 1. And again, it's not going to matter how you lay your flower down on top of it. I'm just going to kind of get it in a direction that I like. I think that works. And bring in those glue dots. And I'm going to put some leaves on either side of my flower. These ephemera leaves were a quick and easy way to just kind of add. I think I'm going to go with my flower like that. So I think I want my leaves here. And here. There we go. And I'm going to put some adhesive in here. Put a little bit on that. There we go. Okay, how cute is that? I like it. Okay, there's a little trick. This is going to be the inside piece of your card. Okay, so we're gonna put this piece on, and you want to be sure you only had adhesive on this part of it so that it opens. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay this piece right here. Okay, so I have an idea about where it's gonna go. Okay. And I'm going to bring in my adhesive, and I'm going to put it right on that outside line. Okay, so it's the very right edge, and then I'm going to flip this over and put it on that outside line. Oh, I should have set it there. There we go. And then I'm going to put this on. Okay, isn't it adorable? And I want to put this piece on the inside, so I'm going to put adhesive around it. Yep, I am running out of adhesive here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just kind of hold it behind this piece. Okay. I'm just going to hold it. I don't want this piece to be able to be seen, so I'm just going to hold it there and put it down very lightly, and then open it up and make sure before I press it down really strong that it's straight. And that's going to be the inside, and you won't be able to see it. Okay, and then I brought along some of these gems. I love these kind of puffed up little gems here. So I'm going to add them up top. And then I'm going to add one, I think, down here. Okay. So there we go. There's our card. So cute. All right, so those are your 3 cards with the beautiful gallery. Simply Beautiful. So it's the Simply Beautiful stamp set and bundle. Thanks for stopping by, you guys, and I hope I get to see you next week. Bye.